So yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and I did not post about it, first of all, because I didn't know it was happening, but also I have grave reservations with that term, mental health. In fact, both of those words, individually and collectively, I think they point us in precisely the wrong direction when it comes to what we commonly call mental illness. First of all, the term mental, it implies that these are mind problems and reinforces this idea that the mind and body are separate. The idea that you can fix these quote unquote mind problems with the mind. And I spent many, many years with many gifted therapists trying to figure out how to fix my mind with my mind and their minds, and it did not work. It just led me deeper and deeper into my own obsessive compulsive disorder. I believe everything we call a mental illness, ultimately, it has a physical basis. Specifically, there are sensations slash emotions in the body, emotions of principally loss and fear that we are trying to avoid with these mental illnesses. They're really strategies to avoid these emotions, and they sometimes work in the very short term, but then they ultimately create more fear and loss, which in turn drives more of the maladaptive strategy as the classic vicious cycle. This is how people get trapped in mental illnesses. This is how I got trapped for many, many years in obsessive compulsive disorder. The way to freedom is not by figuring out this stuff with our minds, but by going into our bodies and fully experiencing the unwanted emotions and sensations, really surrendering to them. They may or may not go away, but when we allow them to be there, we achieve some measure of freedom. And that's really the goal here. My issue with the word health is it's a little more pedantic. I have no problem with health. It's a great concept. But what I think when people talk about mental health, really what they mean is not suffering. And I don't think that's in the cards for anyone. Clearly, things can get to a point of dysfunction where you need outside help. And I have been in that position many times, and I certainly continue to avail myself of that sort of help. But the idea that we should be able to avoid suffering, I think, frankly, is something that has been peddled to great profit by the drug companies. Oh, you're sad. Well, take this pill that will elevate your serotonin. First of all, side note, the idea that there's a chemical imbalance underlying mental illnesses has been roundly disproven. There is no strong, clear correlation between serotonin and depression, between dopamine and schizophrenia. And in fact, I think it sells short the truth that these are not the same as mental illnesses are not the same as, say, heart disease or a broken bone. There is an existential and I would say spiritual dimension to these conditions, and that in turn means there's an opportunity there. The single biggest source of growth for me has been working with my own, quote, mental illness, obsessive compulsive disorder. So I've seen people post mental health is a right. I think certainly everyone should be able to get support, but the idea that we just shouldn't suffer is I think, ultimately counterproductive. So really, the goal, I think, is not freedom from suffering, but freedom. And often that means freedom with suffering. And that is something I continue to work towards every day, including World Mental Health Day.